Hey there, it's Vanessa Spiva with Keller Williams Realty, partner and founder of Urban Door Real Estate Group. I'm sending you this video to give you tips, tricks, and strategies on how to make the best decision for you, your family, and your financial goals when you're considering buying or selling property. And today I'm going to focus on how to buy or sell an income property. What are the things that you need to think about, and what's the best way to get the best results? So I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks for buyers and some tips and strategies for sellers as well. And starting with sellers, how do you decide to sell your property? Well, it's probably going to be based on how much the property is worth. Well, how do you decide how much it's worth? With income properties that have units, 2, 3, and 4 units, it could really vary, and it all comes down to the numbers. So I have a client who has a duplex, and his question was, how much is my property worth? I see some comparable duplexes that sold for $1 million, and then on the other hand, I see some comparable duplexes that sold for $800,000 or $850,000. So there's a $200,000 or $150,000 gap between those two kinds of comps. So I broke down all the numbers for him, and this is what it came down to. It comes down to what the rents are. So for the $1 million duplexes, those were the comparable duplexes that sold for $1 million. They were bringing in about $6,000 a month in rental income. Well, that makes sense for the potential buyer because the mortgage is about $5,700. And that I calculated with the standard 20% down and today's current interest rate of 5.3%. So that's a pretty good estimate of probably what their mortgage payments came out to. And the rents are coming out to $6,000. That's both units renting out at $3,000. So that's top market rent. That's great. That's a great scenario, and that's why those duplexes in that area that were comparable sold for $1 million. And you know, there was a couple $100 left over for expenses and maintenance for those properties. So that is what's selling in this current market. And so those are the kinds of numbers that made sense to those potential buyers. And that's why these properties sold for $1 million. So I explained that to him, and we went through it. And then we went through the properties that were selling for $850,000 and $800,000. And he actually fell into this category because for one unit, he was getting market rent, $3,000 a month. And for the other unit, he was only getting $2,000 a month. Now that unit was under rent control. And it made a big difference because he was only getting $5,000 in monthly rental income. So potentially for a buyer, they would want their mortgage to be around right here, $4,700. And in order for their mortgage payment to be there, this is the price that would make sense. So $800, and this is for my client's property. This is his exact scenario. So for his property, if he sold it the way it was with the current tenant in there paying $1,000 less than the market rents, the most money he would get would be about $820,000. Well, that's almost a $200,000 difference compared to the other properties that sold for $1 million that were getting top market rents. So he was here and he wanted to be here. So what we did is I do a lot of work on the back end, and we made sure the unit was delivered vacant so that he can get top market value. So really he saved about $200,000 by taking the time to think through the process, look at the comparable properties, and think about what is it going to take for him to present his property in the best way possible, just like the other comparables, so that he can get that $1 million price. And it worked out perfectly, and he is so glad he took the time to do that. And there's some other things that have to happen. It's not all easy. There's a lot of negotiation. There's some work with the tenants that we have to do, but it is there is a solution. There is a way to make it happen. So if that's what you want and you know you want it, I can make that happen for you. But that's basically the process. Those are the things that need to be considered. The monthly rents are obviously the biggest part, and it all comes down to the numbers. So that's for sellers. How do you figure out if you could sell? Well, look at what it's going to take for you to get that top market value. And in that case, we had to deliver that unit vacant so that the new buyer would buy that unit knowing that they could rent it out at the $3,000 market rent rate. So then they were able to cover all of the mortgage at $5,700, and they were able to have a couple $100 left over for the expenses. Very, very important stuff. It can get complicated and it can get extensive, but I do all that work for you guys. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'll dive into it with you and we'll go through it step by step. So with buyers, you made the decision, you want to buy an income property, you want that investment, you want to have a duplex or a 3-unit building or a 4-unit building, you want to have that rental income every month. Well, how do you choose the right one? There's a lot of income properties, and how do you discover what's going to be the best investment for you? Again, it all comes down to the rents. And for buyers, you got to think a little bit more in the future as well. So what you'll do is you'll pick your properties and you'll look at the current rents. The best way to decide is you want to get a property that has a 4% cap rate. The cap rate has to be as close as possible to 4%. If you want everything done for you, you know, you don't want to do any work in the future, you want the property set, ready to rent out, it needs to be near a 4% cap rate. Now, the best kind of cap rate is 5%, but in LA, 4% is still considered good. So when you're shopping around for properties, what I do on the back end is I'll calculate the expenses and all the numbers to make sure we're getting as close as we can to that 4% cap rate. So that way we know it's a good investment for the buyer. Now, if the property is not at a 4% cap rate yet, that's okay. But we want to look at the potential of the units. Can those units be delivered vacant, which is what we just talked about, you know, on the seller tip. Can one of them or can both of them be delivered vacant? And best case scenario, once those units are fixed up and they have some improvements and nicer kitchens and nicer bathrooms, what's the top market rent that they can get? And potentially, if it's at a 2% cap rate, can we get to that 4 or 5% cap rate in the near future by doing some work on the units and then renting them out at top market rents? So as a buyer, you got to think about the future and what's possible. What is the upside potential for that property? Alrighty, well, I hope these 2 tips helped you, whether you're looking to buy an income property or sell an income property. And again, this is just basic information. We are just scratching the surface here with strategy and how to decide and how to go through the process. There's extensive other things that we could do to dive deeper and to dig deeper into the numbers. I have spreadsheets and charts that get into appreciation and how much you're paying off the loan, you know, within 10 years. I have all these great tools to help you and I make the best decisions. So please share this video. I hope it was helpful. Send it to your friends, your family, any coworkers, any of your neighbors who are thinking about buying or selling a property. Just shoot them over the video so that they could watch it and benefit from it. And they also have my contact information. And of course, if you have any questions, call me, text me, Facebook me, email me. I'm here. I'm available to talk and chat. I love talking about real estate. And most of all, I love helping people. I love helping people with financial security and making the best decision for their lives. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.